Hey guys, JAMIELEIGH here. I wanted to make this video about hormones because I mention it kind of in passing a lot throughout my videos, and I get a lot of questions regarding what does it mean, what is it, and why is it a negative thing. And basically, it is natural for all animals and humans to be hormonal, which just means that they're looking at things as sexually relevant. But you know, birds definitely get hormonal, and they tend to get hormonal twice a year, in the spring and in the fall. And this is totally normal, but we see a lot of bad behaviors come through it. And that's because as people, we don't necessarily know what we're seeing and we misinterpret it. So a hormonal bird can oftentimes be seen as cuddly and sweet and loving. And as humans, we tend to really love cuddly animals. Please do not get a bird if you want a cuddly pet. The cuddlier species, like the cockatoos and stuff, for which they're known for being more cuddly, it's not a positive thing. It's more of a hormonal thing usually that people misinterpret. So I used to think that that it was a cuddly thing too, and that bird loved that person the most, and that's not true. Basically, people think that it's a cuddly thing. They encourage it. They cuddle with the bird. They stroke the bird. They rub the bird. They go under the wings. They touch the bird all over because suddenly their bird is allowing it, and it looks so sweet and it seems so sweet. And then it leads to random biting. It leads to hating everybody else in the household and just wanting that one person. Which just accelerates from there. So it just gets worse and worse and worse. The more that you encourage hormonal behavior, the worse behavioral problems you're gonna have in the future. And so I wanted to demonstrate with Morgan, because she is extremely hormonal right now. You don't wanna be encouraging hormones. So I am using this as a demo. I want you guys to see what some of the signs look like. Some of the signs are a bird putting their head down and their butt up. So anytime they rub their butt against something, whether it's a perch, which Amazons are known to do, they're known to be perching on a perch and then just rubbing their butt against it, so their tail's totally fanned out, it's almost hugging the perch, and they're just rubbing. A bird gets really puffed out, so they put all their feathers out, they get really big and puffed. The head down, the butt up is an extreme sign. So anytime they're starting to back up into something and rub. Also, like nesting behaviors where they're taking their head and they're kind of like feeling textures. They'll take their beak and they'll do this, or they'll do this and like wipe it all around. One of the things Morgan does specifically is she gets really twitchy with her head movements. This is specific to her. It is definitely a hormonal behavior, but you may notice that JINX, my blue-throated macaw, also shows like twitchy signs, but his is excitement and usually doing a talking behavior, so it's not related to hormones. So there is a difference between the type of twitchy head movement. There are different types to make it just a little bit more confusing. They can get very mouthy. They'll start wanting to play with your fingers in their beaks. They'll start regurgitating on your finger. They'll lick you. I've seen birds like just full on take their tongue and like lick up and down, lick your fingers, and then just basically try to pull your finger into their mouth to make them regurgitate for you. So any sort of, if you've ever seen a bird hand feed, they'll grab on and they'll like chug. If they do that, it's basically a form of regurgitation later. So you don't want to be doing that, because as in the wild, you'll see two birds like lock beaks and regurgitate for each other. That is a mating thing, a breeding thing, a baby bird to mom thing you don't want to be encouraging. The main reason you don't want to encourage sexual behavior with a bird is, quite frankly, you can't get a bird off. So you are literally sexually frustrating your bird, which goes on and on and on and on and on. And as you can imagine, any animal that becomes extremely sexually frustrated is going to become aggressive, and therefore it's just unsafe. And it's unfair to the animal, to be completely and entirely honest. Also, I know of people who have encouraged it to the point of their birds literally masturbate on them. And It's not pretty. It's not clean. It's just really, it's gross, guys. Like, it's not fair to the animal. You really shouldn't be encouraging that sort of thing. So if you want your birds to breed, that's one thing. If you're breeding your birds, then them doing that with each other is one thing. That's natural. A bird trying to, you know, show sexual signs to a human is not. It's not cool. It's not cool of you to encourage it. I understand that a lot of people do it accidentally. They don't understand what any of these signs mean or are. So it's important to get that information out there so people do know. But basically, in the wild, any bird is allowed to touch another bird's head or neck because the bird itself can't reach its head or neck to be able to preen those feathers. So any other bird is allowed to come help. Hey man, help me out, get these out, you know. That's totally cool. That's any bird level. It's all good. So definitely pet your bird on the head and neck. However, touching anywhere else on the body is only for the mate. So the mate is the only other bird that can touch anywhere else on its mate's body. You should be able to touch your bird anywhere, to be able to feel the keel bone, to make sure that your bird's not losing weight, to be able to open and extend the wings and be able to look under there. And you should be able to touch your bird anywhere, but you should not be stroking or rubbing your bird everywhere. There's a huge difference between husbandry, where you're able to give your bird a full physical, basically, by being able to look and see, is my bird plucking under its wings? Did it hurt its foot? Can I pick up its foot and really examine it? That sort of thing. And a difference between like full-on stroking your bird, rubbing your bird under its wings, holding it there, just petting and stroking, any like stroking, rubbing, extended amount of time stuff anywhere else on the body, especially under the wings and on the chest. You're literally stroking your bird. You're literally sexually stimulating your bird. So I realize the idea of hormones can be very overwhelming for a lot of people, especially if you're new to it, you didn't know it existed, you didn't know you were doing anything wrong. That's usually the case, so that's totally normal. I have an entire course on it. It's literally 45 minutes, and it includes live demos. So we use our own birds, and there are a lot of subtle triggers. For example, JINX, my blue-throated macaw, he's not easily triggered. I can blow air in his face, just lightly blow in his face, and he actually sticks out his tongue. So I could use that and put it on cue. Actually blowing in the face of, like lightly blowing in the face of birds is often how you get them to do like a head shake. You can train them to do a head shake on cue. However, with our Congo African gray CRESSI, if we lightly blow in her face a little bit of air, she gets sexually stimulated. And it is instantaneous, it is crazy, and it's incredibly hard to get her back out of it. So we show things like this on how easy it is to do those little subtle triggers and how to recognize them within your own bird, because every bird is just a little bit different on their triggers. There's definitely some that apply to all, like the stroking and the petting all over the body, but then there's other ones like that one where you would never think that that might do something. There's also what to feed, what not to feed, because a lot of food that resembles the texture or temperature of regurgitated food will be a trigger for your bird. There's sleep patterns, the amount of sleep, the quality of sleep, the environment, what you give as toys. You might have to not give those as toys. I know a lot of people use cardboard and paper and all sorts of things and like toilet paper tubes to make toys out of, and if you have a small bird that can actually fit in that tube and make a little nest out of it, you can't be giving that during this time. You don't want to be giving cardboard boxes or places that are dark or things that can be seen as nesty or nesting materials. There's so much that goes into hormones, and you have to really be aware of it during the spring and the fall when your bird is going to show those signs that you can discourage it. Because it's one thing to have a breeding bird where it's encouraged and they're just going to be natural and do what birds do. But if you have a pet parrot, it's not fair to encourage those instincts to come into full flare because you can't see it through. Does that make sense? It's just really, it's really unfair to the bird. So we need to discourage them as much as possible so that they don't come into full fruition. And this course is really about that. It's an instant download. I try to make everything an instant download when I can for you guys, because I understand I have a problem, I need a solution now. Please look into that course. It goes into full detail, more detail than I could possibly do in a YouTube video. And again, it shows the live demos and demonstrations, which I definitely don't want to be redoing. So yeah, hopefully this helps. Hopefully it explains at least the world into hormones, so it can at least get you started on the right path and stop anything that you might be doing accidentally to encourage this kind of stuff.